for two places, where you are in Sebastopol and where I am in Denver. So for Sebastopol area, we acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Coast Miwok and the Southern Pomo peoples of the Federated Indians of the Gratan Rancheria. We offer our gratitude to them and their descendants for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. And for here, I would like to acknowledge that this area, which we call Denver, was a meeting place because it's where the plains come up to the beginning of the Front Range, the beginning of the Rocky Mountains. And there's also a confluence of rivers that are here, which is why the city is here. And so I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting ground, what is the unceded and traditional lands of the Ute, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, the Kiowa, and the Shoshone people. And we also offer our gratitude to them and their descendants for their care of this land. And so we are continuing to talk about, fire runs through it, climate change. And I have to say that this week has certainly been a amazing demonstration in climate crisis. And you know how appropriate and germane it is that we've been reading this book and going through it. My daughter lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I have a lot of friends in Asheville and around the Asheville area. So I was very personally touched by the enormity of this particular storm. It passed by St. Petersburg 200 miles out in the Gulf of Mexico, and still was able to produce a over 6 foot storm surge that went over the barrier islands and flooded a lot of people's homes. And my daughter's okay; her house wasn't flooded, but a lot of her friends were. And then I have personal grief about it because I always thought of the Asheville, when you leave Florida, that's where you go. That's where you go to evacuate, is Georgia and the Carolinas. And so the fact that the storm was so big that they were having rain in the Carolinas 2 days before the storm actually got there is mind-boggling. And so I think that, what we're talking about here is like, how do we, or how do I, like face the climate anxiety that this brings up, and not, putting our head in the sand, but really, for me, being present in the present moment and, practicing kindness as we can and doing what we can in this moment is it becomes more and more like necessary not to go crazy with anxiety or feel inadequate or what we can do. So it just brings me home more to thinking and talking about this subject. Yeah. So I mean, and that's not even to say what else is going on. I mean, Israel and Kathmandu, Nepal had 24 inches of rain in one day or something, and flooded all through there in northern Europe. I mean, the list goes on. So yikes. And so in this book, I'm going to talk about I'm going to read some quotes from this book, talk about the book, and also talk about a recent trip I took to Oklahoma. I went to a couple of weeks ago. I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to attend a water protector conference, indigenous led, conference. It's the second one I've been to, and I was nice to come here, to come to it again, because this time I knew people and I felt more welcomed and more comfortable, I guess. And so it was really ties in with this book in the sense that, you know, it's Indigenous led, and the theme is really rights of nature, and developing this same kind of idea that Marianne talked about and Chelsea talked about, of this experience of country, this experience of being connected to the land, of being the land, pretty much. So just a little background of it. It's outside of Tulsa on Muskogee Creek land. And the host family, they have a roundhouse, and the roundhouse is an open kind of gathering place. And in the center is a fire pit, and it's flanked by four huge tree trunks. And then the roof is open on the top so that the smoke from the fire goes out. So there's a top chimney. And the first beginning of this weekend was to build a sacred fire. And they so created sacred fire with prayers and ceremony, and we were not to take pictures of it. And that fire was kept going night and day throughout the 2 days, 2.5 days of the conference, which was really beautiful. And then the elder who was the host of it spoke about the fire, but also spoke about when you're going around in the roundhouse to walk around the fire in a counterclockwise direction. And he said the reason for that is that that's the natural way of things. And he said, well, vines grow in a counterclockwise direction. And indeed, when I got back to my house and checked out my morning glory vines, they wind around things in a counterclockwise direction. And then also the Tibetans, when they go to do circumambulation, when they go to walk around a sacred site or sacred stupa, they keep their left shoulder and go around in a counterclockwise direction. So I like that connection with nature and kind of listening and noticing how the earth, what's going on here, and he said, the hair on my arm are the trees. The blood in my veins are the rivers. My bones are the earth. And he offered a teaching story about a creation story about how humans came out of, were born from the earth. And he talked about these mounds in the earth that were, I see it as like a pregnant belly, like a pregnant mama's belly, and how the peoples were born from the earth. And I just think it's just a very, it's what we as I don't know, modern culture need to shift around, that we're not we're not in charge of it. We don't know everything. We can't we can't fix it, what we've gotten ourselves into with our intellect, and with thinking that humans are the top of the pyramid. We're not the top of the pyramid. It's a circle, and we're part of that circle. And that comes through also in the book. Fire runs through all things, in talking about country, in talking about this way of interacting with nature. And really, shifting that when we come onto a land or go for a walk somewhere, we ask permission of the spirits of the place. We ask for help. We talk to the trees and the plants and say, what can we do? And indigenous cultures know about this. I mean, I don't know if it's years ago, I had a CD, maybe it was, I guess, Australia or the Amazon, but the name of it was a bunch of songs and flutes, and it was called The Songs That the Plants Taught Us, And this is just, this kind of, it's new information for us in a way. Or through our meditation experience, we get this sense of interconnection or being greater than our small self. But I don't know that I'm fully able to ask Mother Earth for questions on how to proceed in climate crisis in our life, which is, I think, what we're being asked to do. Yeah. So it goes back to me. I mean, it goes back to me, for me, to the doctrine of discovery, and how when Constantine sort of co-opted Christianity to use it as a force for power, that really, I mean, we say white bodies colonized the Americas, but Europeans were already colonized by this power structure that came through, because my indigenous roots go back to Northern Europe and Northern Scandinavia and the British Isles. And when the Roman armies got to the British Isles and saw that people were worshiping in the oak groves and getting their spiritual sustenance and their nourishment from the trees, they cut down all the trees. And so that was, without 1,500 years ago, right? I mean, we've been in this a long time, a long time. And so we have to relearn. And the doctrine of discovery, which was based on this Genesis passage about God giving man dominion over the fish of the sea and the earth and everything. But if I was speaking to a Christian theologian and asked her about this, and she said, well, if you go back to the Hebrew, the word dominion does not mean power over. It means responsibility for. And that's what indigenous wisdom is telling us now. We have responsibility for the earth. We're not at the top of the pyramid. And in this Fire Runs Through It, I found this quote of so this guy, this translator, David Hinton, who has translated, has done a lot of work in Buddhism, said he examines the Chinese character that in English renders as understanding. So if we're talking about understanding, wisdom, he finds it as a capacity that human thought and emotion share with wild landscape and indeed the entire cosmos. So this is a capacity that human thought and emotion share with the entire wild landscape, which is such a different view. Such a different view. And I was, it's the same thing of like anthropomorphism, where we get, the idea that I get ridiculed about it, talking about plants as if they can hear, or talking, or saying that your dog feels, you're relating human characteristics to things that we don't consider having consciousness. But actually, that is our, egotistical kind of ethnocentric, human ethnocentric idea that we're the only ones that have consciousness. We're the only ones that can think. We're the only ones that know we're alive. And yet now, they're finding that, oh, crows maybe are self-aware. They use tools, and that lots of animals have, you know, pronouns and names for other members of their species. And so our whole idea that we're at the top is really, needs to be transformed. And then I would say, or a lot of people would say, isn't that what we need to do in order to find the answers out of our climate crisis predicament? Is listen to the earth and ask questions and ask for answers. And I mean, not that we don't try to do everything we can do in the technological and carbon sequestering and finding other ways of energy production and all these things we can do. But we also have to, and that comes into this, shift of consciousness that we, that we have to globally figure out that we can't keep doing this, and how to make that shift. And I feel like our Dharma practice, our is sitting in zazen, our offering prayers and chanting is a large part of that. I do feel it's sometimes I mean, I feel kind of like maybe it's the only thing that I can do to help, So yeah, we'll do our best here. Yeah, yeah. Um, so let me see what else I have in here. Yeah. Well, so back to yeah. So she has a nice, in this book, she has a nice quote here that says, and this is kind of related to this, is uh, to admit how sharply we suffer the wounding of the earth in our own bodies lets something hard and scared in us soften and be held as it transforms into mutual caring that is alive in country. So the mutual caring for the earth. So, you know, it's almost like without, I think Chelsea was saying this the other night, was, without the grounding um, of our practice, the grounding of mindfulness and big mind, we don't have the bandwidth to take on the amount of suffering that's in the world right now. And somehow that, for me, it's like knowing that that's present, allowing that in, that pain is real, and that these people around the world are experiencing these things, or the earth herself is experiencing these things. I go back to people. Yeah, and being at the same time grounded and held in a bigger being time frame, that is the earth's being time frame, or is Dharma being time frame, country, these words that we talk about that allow us to get a bigger picture, I think is what allows us to continue to function in the world right now. Yeah. Let's see what else. Oh, I kind of, what I wanted to say in the beginning, and maybe we can do it now, is just to take a moment to ground, like to just be feeling this earth and feel our seat and invite in our ancestors, our guides, our benefactors, our ancestors who hold, the ones who hold us, who have the facility and the beneficence to hold us with kindness and generosity, um, and bring that protection in with us right now. Mine, and sometimes I see like a big redwood tree fairy ring, you know, how they grow in a ring around when an old tree goes down. Um, and and then allow ourselves to feel our seat and feet, and how the seat rises up to hold us and nourish us. And below the seat and below the floor, we find our roots all the way into the ground. And really the earth rises up to care for us, rises up to nourish us and hold us with loving kindness. Because the earth really loves us. Cares for us, nourishes us. And I'll just read a meditation that is in this book. And I think Ellen put it in the newsletter, but it goes like this. And we're not actually sitting on the ground right now, so we're gonna imagine that we're sitting on the ground for this, and then you can do it when you are sitting on the ground too. So it goes, find a place that wants you to sit down on the ground. Now, the first sentence right away blows me away, because it's not find a place that you think looks comfortable and nice to sit on the ground. Find a place that the earth wants you to sit. Okay, so we're finding our place that the earth wants us to sit on the ground with her. Take your time before easing your fingertips a little way into the earth. And then when you feel a connection, speak your name out loud. Saying this is your daughter, your son, and say your name. This is your daughter, Erika, talking with you, mother. Talking with you. Take a moment for the question that needs to be asked to arrive in your heart. Then speak it out loud and wait for the return touch. Take a moment for the question that needs to be asked to arrive in your heart. And then speak it out loud and wait for the return touch. The unexpected words that sound in your own heart. Wait for the return touch, the unexpected words that sound in your own heart. Yeah. So I think this is a beautiful little one to do, to just begin to listen and to answer. And to say again, to admit how sharply we suffer the wounding of the earth in our own bodies, let something hard and scared in us soften and be held as it transforms into the mutual caring that is alive in Dharma, in country, in being, in suchness. Yeah. So at this conference that I went to, the Water Protector Conference, the rights of nature, that they're saying, you know, rivers are beings that have rights, mountains are beings that need to be respected and protected. So one of the presenters of the panel was talking about how he was reburying, ceremonially reburying ancestors' bones, remains that had been given back from museums. And it got heavy, you know. And so at one point, there's kind of, you could feel this heaviness, and Casey Camp Hornick, who's the elder and the moderator of the conference, got up and started to do she strode around the fire singing a song and sang this beautiful song over and over again, and everybody stood up and stood, and I just did what everybody did. So we all stood, and she sang, and after a while we could sing it too, and a lot of people were singing it. And then after she said, and then it just changed the energy. The whole thing came down, and it was easier to bear. And then she said, this song says, I love you, my Mother Earth. I love you, Mother Earth. That was a song. Yeah. So, well, I think we've talked for a while. I think we could thank you. We could have groups. And the groups could be, so at the end of this whole thing, it says, so the question is, what would love do now? What would love do now? I'm like, well, what would Scooby do, right? So what would love do now? So do you want to talk about I don't know, groups of three, whatever we want to talk about for what we have, like maybe 10 minutes before we have to do before we do the names, right? Does that sound right?
Um, do the names? Oh, I don't know that we're going to do that today.
Yeah. Oh, we're not going to do that. Okay, good. Okay, I mean, or fine, whatever. Okay. So Yeah, want to break into groups and talk about anything this brings up or how you're doing and what would love do now.